Good morning, everybody. This is Boomersdaddy with Spreadsheet Sports. Got a lineup review for you guys this morning. Been talking to a couple people. They have been gracious enough to allow me to use some of their lineups. Actually, it's just going to be one guy this morning. Waiting for a response back on a couple others, but they've got some different strategies that they're able to do, or not really able to do, but that they apply. And it works out for them at times, and it doesn't at times as well. So, I posted a link to the DraftKings interview with Fox Business this morning, and FanDuel's response on their news feed about the controversy that's going on right now. I will have my opinion out there a little bit later on, but I'm going to, since this is a provider for myself and my family, I'm not going to act emotionally and burn bridges that by spouting off at the mouth. So just know that I am aware and I'm not hiding, and I will voice my opinion here in a little bit. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. Okay. This was my cash game lineup on DraftKings this past weekend. It ended up taking about 75% or so of my cash games that I was in. It wasn't as good as what the potential was going to be, but I do believe it did very, very well, considering the fact that there were some major landmines in this, as it looked to be. I kind of constructed this lineup thinking along the lines of cash/GPP. What I mean by that is that I took some safe picks. I took Aaron Rodgers, obviously, with Randall Cobb. Both of them. Rodgers had an okay day, but for his salary and for it being Aaron Rodgers, you kind of would have expected a little bit more. He wasn't. I don't even believe he was in the top 5 of scoring for quarterbacks this past week. Carlos Williams, at his price tag, he was a no-brainer. Randall Cobb, obviously, he didn't have as good of a day. If he gets in the end zone, then you've got the makings of a bigger day going along there. Obviously, Devonta Freeman, we knew he was going to be one of the higher-owned running backs with Carlos Williams. Amari Cooper going against the Chicago Bears. Everybody kind of predicted that after what Carson Palmer did to the Bears defense the week before, that Amari Cooper and Derek Carr were going to go nuts, and they didn't do too bad. What saved his day was the touchdown. 4 receptions for 50 yards. That's not great. That's right around where Randall Cobb was. Percy Harvin was my GPP. I figured with Sammy Watkins out, he was going to be under-owned, kind of a non-chalk play, and I felt like there were way too many clear-cut chalk plays this week in DFS that you really had to throw one guy in there to kind of differentiate yourself in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't feel that way that often. But with the way the prices fell, with the matchups the way they fell, and the injuries the way they fell, I felt it was just absolutely I felt it was critical to go that way, which is another reason why I went with Jason Witten. I think Jason Witten was still partly chalk, just because of the fact that with no Dez, with no Tony, you've got Brandon Weeden, who's kind of a check down master, even more so than Alex Smith. And he was going to look for Jason a lot, which he did. Jason Witten ended up having, I think, 7 or 8 targets. He had a couple balls that were just off the tip of his fingers. And so it could have been a bigger day. Obviously, looking back on it, The bigger plays at tight end would have been either Charles Clay or Martellus Bennett. I liked Matt Forte, especially when they announced that Jay Cutler was going to be playing, and that was a big way to go there. And then obviously the Seahawks defense was the ultimate chalk defense of the weekend. So 137-26, not a bad showing for cash games, especially with the way that scoring was down. You've got to kind of understand when it comes to cash games, you're looking for on DraftKings that target score. I always target right around 140 to 150. If I can do that, I know I can at least get my 60 or 55 to 60% win rate in my head-to-heads and my double-ups. On FanDuel, you're looking right around that 125 to 135 range. That way, you're still going to be able to beat that. But what makes it so hard and difficult sometimes is when we have a situation like we did in week 3 where everybody goes bonkers and your cash game is still only hitting that minimum threshold. Your cash game's not putting up the 175 that needs to go and to be able to beat 60 to or 55 to 60%. So 137 this week when a lot of GPP scores were topping out at 199 or so. I believe the Millie Maker was a 201, and that will lead us to our next lineup. This was in I believe it was a $100 qualifier. I can't remember what the buy-in level of it was, but this was in a qualifier for Vegas for the WFFC, and this was a little bit different than my cash lineup. It was something that I took a couple risks on, and they didn't pay out either as well. I want to say thank you to S. Roll, who I am pretty active with on Twitter. He was gracious enough to allow me to dissect his lineup next to mine so we can kind of see the differences. And you can see there's a lot of similarities between my cash game lineup and his GPP lineup and the lineup I have here. So I'll go through a couple of these here in just a little bit. But I took a flyer on Chris Johnson when they announced that Andre Ellington wasn't going to be out or was going to be out. I figured the reason I could do that was because he was going to be low owned. He actually was. I think he was 2.5% owned in this tournament because the news came out after original roster lock at 1 o'clock. So that was I would do that knowing the kind of workload that Chris Johnson got the week before and going against a Rams defense that I'm not too enamored with on the pass side, even though I know they have a good rush defense. I felt that Chris Johnson was going to be utilized in the passing game a little bit, and it was going to be able to definitely be a little bit of a sneaky play. And 12.4, I'm not disappointed in that. He got sniped on a touchdown that David Johnson got. And if he gets that touchdown, you're adding another 6 points there. That's 18.4 at 2.5% owned. I'm loving that play all day long. So, again, we know that Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb didn't have a great day. But this is what I talk about with the process. Trust the process. I love this lineup. I would put this lineup again in the same tournament, given the same matchup. Any time, and on normal weeks it's going to compete a lot more than what it did. So the only question that I liked AJ Green, obviously going against Kansas City. The only thing that was crazy was the Jimmy Graham. I believed that Jimmy Graham was going to start getting, and I put him in my write-up, he was going to start getting more looks inside the red zone. He was going to start getting more targets, and that him and Russell Wilson were getting on the same page. And that's just not the case. That just wasn't the case on Monday night. That wasn't a lot of a very good-looking football for Jimmy Graham. He looks disinterested in being in that Seattle offense, and to make matters even worse, the Seahawks offensive line is just horrible. So, okay, going over to his lineup here. Obviously, we saw Matt Forte in my cash game lineup. I'm assuming that he had him in even before Jay Cutler was announced that announced that he was going to play. Jameis Winston going against Carolina. This was in my opinion, a really, really risky contrarian play, and you can see that even Jameis Winston with 4 interceptions actually outscored Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you were to tell me that Jameis Winston was going to outscore Aaron Rodgers, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy. Anything can happen in football, but it does happen. In GPPs, if you didn't have Devonta Freeman, you probably were just hoping for a min cash. I didn't think he was going to go off for 3 touchdowns again. I felt he was going to be a little bit higher owned than what I wanted to do. That's why I took 1 block at running back with Carlos Williams, but Devonta Freeman going off for 40 points, and really not a lot of other players hitting over 30, except for Vincent Jackson. I think there were a couple more. Jeremy Maclin, I know, got close. Oh yeah, obviously he's got him in his flex, but with not a lot of players doing that this week, that really, really did set you behind. That's not something that you can predict as a 3-touchdown game. But I like the move here. Instead of going with Carlos Williams, who was cheaper, he paid up for his value, so to speak, and went to Devonta Freeman, who Tevin Coleman was still going to be out. He was still going to get a lot of the work. Houston's defense has not looked that good this year, and so that really, really did pay off for him. So Keenan Allen, obviously, going against the Cleveland Browns, that was a great, great play. It was even greater considering the fact that now the San Diego Chargers basically have Keenan Allen, Ladarius Green, and Antonio Gates. They don't have a lot of other receiver options. They only dressed 4. 2 of them got hurt, and it was they were holding their breath. So obviously, you know my thoughts on Percy Harvin. And Vincent Jackson was going to be the contrarian play. Everybody loves Mike Evans. He's the darling, especially the week before getting, I think it was 17 targets from Jameis Winston. We've seen this kind of pattern start to develop where it goes, obviously Mike Evans wasn't active the first week, but when he came back, he only got 3 targets compared to Vincent's like 14 the second week, and then 2 weeks ago, week 3, it was Mike Evans getting all the targets and Vincent Jackson doing nothing. This week it was Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans doing nothing. So if I'm going just based on pattern, I would say next week is a Mike Evans week. But you've got that's a really good play. Charles Clay, obviously, with no Sammy Watkins, Tyrod Taylor just keeps looking for Charles Clay. And Charles Clay actually and Tyrod Taylor both could have had a bigger day. Tyrod had a 30-yard touchdown run called back on a holding, and I believe Charles Clay had a 25-yard touchdown catch called back on a clipping or something like that. So Jeremy Maclin. Jeremy Maclin is somebody that I wish would score touchdowns instead of just getting the yards. I love the fact that Alex Smith is starting to look for him now. I love the fact that you've got a Kansas City wide receiver actually producing, but they need to score touchdowns. Obviously, we know what happened with the KC offense. They got down there, and then they decided to kick field goals. So on FanDuel, if you didn't have the KC kicker, then you were behind the 8 ball on that one as well. Green Bay defense. This is something that I've talked about a number of times with you guys. don't go for always the chalky defense. Go for the defense that gets pressure on the quarterback, that can create turnovers, that can create fumbles, strips, sacks. That's how you're going to get your points with your defense, because not very many times is a defense going to only allow 3 points or no points or just one touchdown. Not in today's NFL. So you're going to automatically lose points. So if you automatically assume that your defense is going to allow 14 points, how many points can you accumulate after that? And you do that by obviously sacks, turnovers, interceptions, fumbles, things like that. So congrats to S-Roll. He's going back to Vegas. He's been there a while, and hopefully I get to see him down there next month. So this looks just basically at some of the ownership percentages. You can see where he does have some chalk in there. Obviously, Devonta Freeman, 17.2% owned. Matt Forte, I believe, was one of the highest owned players in this tournament. Charles Clay, 16.8, and even Percy Harvin was 10.6% owned. But you got Jameis Winston at under 1%, and then Vincent Jackson at under 2%. That's how he made a lot of his headway and got to the top. So congrats to him. You can see the leaderboard over here. It was kind of full with big name players, and he's definitely one to be reckoned with when it comes to Vegas. So guys, that's it for me today. I will have a short little opinionated podcast a little bit later about what's going on in the industry. And other than that, I will talk to you guys later. Good luck, everybody, and I will see you.